What is the lore of the killers in Die of Death? You might be surprised to learn not all of them actually want to kill you. Maybe they're afraid of something else. Or maybe they're just running from their own past mistakes. If you didn't know, Die of Death is a world where you play as a civilian being targeted by various killers who basically want to stop you from reaching safety in a government bunker. But why? Why these particular monsters? Well, let's first look at Artful. Artful is a French magician who's had a deep connection to magic since birth and was a popular celebrity before his quote-unquote incident. After just one of his performances went particularly badly, Artful let his emotions get the better of him and resorted to taking out his frustrations on his entire audience. Now, if we look at his killer intro, we can actually see what happened at his performance, with him being humiliated probably in front of hundreds of people. And if we look into his abilities, we can actually find out what happened after. So looking at his abilities, we can see how there's Swing, Implement, Copyright, and Repurpose. Now the first three are kind of just related to him being a magician, but the last one is really interesting. Artful quickly pauses and reaches forward with his wand, pocketing whatever he hits. But that's not it. If you look even closer, his icon reveals more clues. There's a music box, which is one of his abilities. There's a wall, which is another one of them. But then there's a person. Does this mean he can literally throw anyone he wants into his magic bag? Apparently, yes. Pocketing a civilian allows Artful to create a puppet. Is that what he did to his audience that day? Turn them all into puppets out of anger? Interestingly, what we see in-game with him being the killer is actually just the aftermath of that performance, with him seeking revenge on you, the player, to get rid of any evidence of his crime. But before we move on to the next killer, I want to make sure you know one more thing about Artful. So besides being French, Artful is also bald. Yeah, that's kind of it. But I should note, not every killer in Die of Death has an in-depth reason for why they kill. Some just do it for the love of the game. Pursuer, for example, is a dangerous apex predator of unknown origin. Its hunting abilities are unmatched. By the time you hear its howl far in the distance, it's already too late. But what makes Pursuer the most horrifying killer so far is the fact he doesn't just hunt these survivors down, but he also eats them afterwards too.
Fresh meat.
Oh yeah, plus he can go completely invisible. Definitely gonna have to check that one off the list. But that's not where his story ends. Pulling up the Forsaken wiki, we find out the government of Robloxia, the same one that built the secret bunker I mentioned in the intro, may have been the one that discovered and released the Pursuer. Now, the wiki could have been written by anyone. I can't just take it at face value. Wait, look at his abilities. The subtext underneath Swing says, its claws were like razors. It tore through like he was paper. Is this a personal account? This man watched his friend in front of him be murdered. Maybe his next ability, Cleave, will reveal more info. As soon as it got its hands on that sword, it seemed like it was second nature. Now, what about Howl and Stalk? That piercing wail. Nothing dare make any sound to contest its call. I still remember it vividly, feeling of it breathing down my neck. Yet, I couldn't see it. Honestly, it sounds like he's being asked questions, like as if it was their first encounter with the creature. Was this person a part of that first group? Maybe in the future we'll actually get to know who this is, but that's where the trail runs cold for Pursuer. Now it's time for killer number 3. Badware originated as a small computer virus infecting and destroying smaller machines. The government of the country where Die of Death takes place in decided to try and capture him. Seeing the virus's potential, they built a robotic body for the virus to infect, hoping to bait, trap, and fully control Badware. Surprisingly, Badware actually fell for the bait and took over the prototype body. But unluckily, the government failed to realize they'd left some pretty big weaknesses in the body software, allowing Badware to fully take over his host and escape. And his backstory is reflected in his gameplay. For number 1, you can place down computers literally anywhere on the map, and then you can straight up infect them by just clicking on them and boom! You make them explode. You infect and destroy the computers. And I'm not sure if this was intentional, but Badware is the hardest killer to play as in-game. His rough and broken prototype body being barely able to catch up to any survivors. That's why you need to very strategically place computers around the map. Also, fun fact, one of Badware's skins called Loveware is based off the I Love You virus, a virus which caused around $8.7 billion in damages in the year 2000. Yet, somehow Badware never decided to infect his biggest and most dangerous target. Kildroid. Kildroid, rather than being a virus, was created as a protection robot, designed to guard important buildings and hunt down wanted men armed with rockets, a jetpack, and mines. Kildroid was the perfect robot, following every order he received to the T, but maybe just a little bit too perfect. See, one day Kildroid was tasked with a confusing order: kill all criminals in Robloxia. Kildroid, being the robot who always followed orders to the T, concluded that the only way to make sure he killed all the criminals in Robloxia was to kill everyone. But here's what's weird. Kildroid never runs out of ammo or bombs. Why, you might ask? Well, apparently, because Badware actually hacked computers that would resupply him. He couldn't hack Kildroid, so he ended up using him as an ally, ending any progress on stopping Kildroid. Harken. So Harken is the last and most interesting killer in this video. Rather than a machine like the last two, Harken is actually a being from another dimension. One filled with creatures called constructs, made of various types of matter. You can imagine dirt, mud, stone, all types of earthly elements. But the bigger the construct, the louder and more deadlier it is. And I mean, they could get big as mountains. That's why when the government, again, decided they wanted to access those powers hidden inside a construct, they kidnapped Harken, one of the weakest constructs they could find, primarily being made out of sand and packed dust, eventually hoping to reverse engineer her powers for some insane weapons project. But during her transport, they made just a little bit too much noise for her, scaring Harken to the point of enragement. He then proceeded to break out of her cell and kill every scientist around her to silence them, in fear that the larger constructs would have heard her, then running off like all the other killers, wreaking havoc on the people of Robloxia in order to silence them. But if you thought I was done talking about Harken, I'm not even close, because we gotta look at her abilities. She has Swing, Agitation, Tangle, and Immolate. But Tangle and Immolate have some interesting subtext. For Tangle, it says, brings me back to the days of fishing with Pop. Did she have a father figure? Some kind of larger construct that she was born from? Again, constructs are made out of random materials they find. This raises two huge questions. Number one, how are constructs created? And number two, why is there fish? What I mean is, why are there just plain old animals in her dimension? And then there's her ability, Immolate, a gentle reminder of what we're fighting for. Yet, this is what it looks like in-game. Yeah, not so gentle after all. Is what she's fighting for just silence? Also, you see that meter there at the bottom of the screen that gets filled up when she goes crazy? That's a noise meter. It'll fill up slowly over time as players are running around and using their weapons on her, sending her into the same crazed state that made her kill those scientists. In conclusion, the only killers that are really evil are just the Pursuer and Badware. Harken only kills because she thinks she needs to, not because she actually wants to. And Kildroid only kills because he wants to protect the people of Robloxia, not realizing he's killing the very people he was meant to protect in the first place. But that's it for all the killers in the game. Remember, Die of Death is still pretty early in development, so there's a lot more questions than answers right now. If you guys like this video, make sure you subscribe and watch one of my other ones on this channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. End video.